Good day, and welcome to this special feature broadcast. When we talk about Africa's economic transition, we often hear about the potential of mineral wealth. But true industrial sovereignty is not born from simply digging raw resources out of the ground and shipping them overseas. It is built when we refine, transform, and beneficiate those resources right here on home soil. Recently, South Africa marked a historic milestone in this journey, the $870 million, or roughly 16 billion rand Nyanza Light Metals Titanium Beneficiation Project, which officially broke ground in the Richards Bay Industrial Development Zone. As Minister Paxtau highlighted, this facility will transform raw ilmenite into high-value titanium dioxide pigment, positioning South Africa as a global chemical manufacturing hub. But behind every multi-billion rand industrial dream lies a complex financial reality. So how do you make a project of this scale bankable for global lenders in an unpredictable world? The answer lies in world-class risk engineering. Joining us today is a joint panel of project visionaries and risk architects who made this deal possible. Firstly, to my right, representing Nyanza Light Metals, let's welcome Rob Mishi, COO, the team driving South Africa's next industrial chapter. And joining from Maxshaw Risk Solutions, to my left, we have Zanele Mswela, Account Executive, Risk Financing and Cell Captive Management, leading Strategic Corporate Advisory. And we have Langa, to my extreme right, Account Executive, Corporate and Global Market, who led the technical risk structuring and global placement for this transaction. Panelists, welcome to the session.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So to jump right straight in, Rob, the Nyanza Light Metals plant in Richards Bay is being hailed as a major industrial milestone for South Africa. Could you perhaps walk us through what this project represents for localized manufacturing and the broader African chemical value chain?
Thank you, Nono. Nyanza Light Metals is a company that was developed by Black individuals from the African continent to build an 80,000 ton per annum titanium dioxide pigment manufacturing plant in the Richards Bay area, in the SEZ to be particular. Mm-hmm. Now, what Nyanza represents in terms of the South African landscape, as we all know, South Africa is a well-established mining jurisdiction. But sadly, very little of the minerals that are extracted in this country are developed, value-added, and beneficiated. So Nyanza comes into that space, looking specifically at the heavy mineral sands component called ilmenite, to add value to it and produce high value-added materials. We start by producing 80,000 tons per annum of titanium dioxide pigment. And then from there, we'll go on and produce other value-added materials, such as zirconium oxychloride and lithium iron phosphate.
Interesting. There seems to be planning for expansion. Maybe Langa, from a risk and insurance perspective, when Maxshaw looks at an $870 million mega project like this, what are the first structural realities you have to evaluate to make it viable for international capital markets?
I think that's a great question. I think it's to conceptualize it, to make it relatable to our audience as well. If you imagine you want to buy a car, right? So Maxshaw, we are a risk services firm. Insurance broking is one part of what we do, an important part of what we do, but the risk spectrum is very, very wide. So, for example, if you walked into a dealership and you said to them, "Hey guys, I've got the insurance for this car, please give me the car," they'd laugh you off the floor. Nah? There are lots of other steps that you need to do. And conceptually, let's use the car as an example, rather than these big complex projects. You walk in there and you tell one of the first things they'll ask you is, can we please have your credit profile? This is basically your governance. How does your company look? What is the governance structures within your organization? Who is the leadership? How do you run your organization? Because they want to know that, can we trust you? An investor wants to be able to look at any business and say, I want to put my money in for a return. So how comfortable can I be to get that return? Another thing that our hypothetical car dealership will ask you for is perhaps your bank statements. And they'll say to you, that's the way to looking at, do you have this liquidity and how much risk can you absorb, right? Making your payments regularly. So for a company such as Nyanza Light Metals, that would be supply chain concerns, looking at who is involved in the supply chain. Will you be able to deliver on the project that you say that you're going to deliver? And then, of course, your ID book, again, the dealership example. So what we're saying is, who are you, right? And I think Rob started off very well in telling us about, this is a company of incredible repute, a company of very talented and, very importantly, Black African individuals working for a project that is going to uplift the country. So I think for any project, no matter the volume or the size of it, 16 billion rand is an extraordinary number, but the principles, the underlying principles remain the same.
Perhaps back to you, Rob. Securing international finance for long-term industrial builds is notoriously difficult in volatile global markets. So what were the key bankability hurdles or lender demands you faced regarding risk management?
So when you look at a project of this size, and in our case, to add context to it, a greenfields project, in other words, there hasn't been any one next to this one that you are expanding onto or developing on top of, what we call brownfields. This is brand new on a blank piece of paper, or to be more practical, on a blank piece of land in the SEZ. You've got to look at three things. As Langa has said, where are you getting your inputs from? Mm-hmm. What do you do with those inputs? And then who is interested in your product? Mm-hmm. So the lenders that are coming in to bring in money into a project of this size, or the guys that are coming to partner the sponsors by injecting equity into the project, need to be very clear with what who those players are. To overlay all of that from a risk management perspective, that's where Make Sure would come in and look at it from end to end in terms of value chain, as Langa has said, and make sure that that value pipeline is risk managed, secured, so that the lenders are happy that should anything go wrong along the process, everything is secure and they've got a fallback plan. And that's how the whole thing stacks together. So in developing the project, we had to package responses to the lenders around our inputs, from the feedstock that we're going to use, the ilmenite that you speak about, and other key inputs, as well as the equipment that's coming in, being imported. How will that happen? If there are delays in that coming in, what happens? Again, to make sure risk management solutions come in there. From the plant or operational perspective, who is building the plant? And that's where we then looked at a well-renowned developer of plants of this nature, who has built more than 30, to be exact, 41 of these plants in Asia, to come in and partner with us so that the lenders and the funders get comfort that all of this can actually be done. Risk management again comes in and says, okay, what guarantees are put in place here in that space? And we offer that as a package to the lenders and the equity funders. Then lastly, from the off-tech perspective, who are you going to sell this product to? Mm-hmm. Once again, risk management comes in and says, what about the volatility in that price as you now produce and sell? What happens there? Make sure we look to them to then provide us with those solutions to manage that volatility. Yeah, that's the end-to-end pipeline that we're looking at. Yeah. And that's what enabled us to lend this project and secure this funding.
I think he's put that so well, because what the lenders and the investors are ultimately going to be saying is, should something go wrong anywhere along this value chain, who's going to bear the risk, right? Because, again, they've put in their capital, and the ability to answer that question at every stage along the pipeline is important. Whether that, as Rob was saying, guarantees, or if it's in a strict insurance solution, or how do we our hedge against currency fluctuations. I think, again, for listeners who maybe want to get into this sort of world, it's about who bears responsibility at every point along the supply chain, value chain, both.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like that Rob and Langa have already introduced the concept of the supply chain, the end-to-end process, and I'm sure Maxshaw was tasked with conducting the lender's requirements due diligence. So Langa has already introduced the topic, but for you, Zanele, what did lenders specifically demand to see before approving funding? And how did Maxshaw bridge that gap between the developer goals and the lender security?
Okay, thanks, Nono. And thank you again, Langa and Rob, for really setting the pace. I'm sure everyone now really understands in a more simple way how intricate bringing a project to bankability, first building the cash flow resilience that is needed, being able to identify the risks, ones within Nyanza's control and ones outside of Nyanza's control, and also settling into a finite and bankable solution. Now, what we are faced with is the risk measures that are within Nyanza, within the infrastructure. On paper, Nyanza is an insanely industrial logic. It makes insane industrial logic. The business case is strong. Operationality, there is no doubt. Hence, getting 870 million funding was something that was within their grasp. But then there is a factor that comes in when we speak about the lender's main concern. In as much as the social and economical impact of Nyanza, the whole beneficiation coming back to Africa, the lender is going to always have one major question. Is Nyanza going to be able to pay back my debt? That is always the question. And in that very intricate play area where there is capital market principles and insurance principles, Maxshaw was then tasked with the duty of coming up with an innovative insurance instrument that was going to be able to hedge one of the most difficult elements of trading in a commodity space. Because in commodity space, most players are price takers. The market dictates the price. So the lender is saying the plant has been established, operations are going brilliantly. We have 80,000 tons ready and waiting to be pushed into the market. What happens then if the price of titanium dioxide tanks and it goes below a sustainable level? This is when we had to put our thinking caps on and come up with what we call price volatility parametric cover. So this borrows nuances from the capital market and insurance infrastructure. So bridging the gap between those two and also our experience in playing between the two made us in a very unique position to be able to craft this parametric cover that is a cover that kicks in when the price of titanium dioxide reaches a figure that would be problematic for Nyanza once the market, the overall market reaches that price. So when that price is reached, it's called a trigger point. So irrespective of whether Nyanza has started making losses or not, if that market price, that global average market price is hit, it triggers a payout. So the payout is incremental, more and more. The more the price tanks, the more insurance payout it goes until it gets to the exit point. Unlike the typical business interruption policy, where you need to set your losses when the loss happens, we need to do a full-on spec of quantifying the loss and adjudicating, which is something that could take, my insurance colleagues would agree with me that it takes quite a while. Yeah. But with the parametric, if there's an independent trigger, an independent proxy that is publicly available to everyone to know that there has been a trigger point, the claim is paid out up to the limit that is required. And these sorts of pockets of value, of unique niche spaces where we have decided to focus more on and add value to the bankability, because the lenders hearing that, okay, in case absolutely everything that is within the control of Nyanza, and that one thing, which is the price, which is outside of their control, if there is a way to mitigate that risk, and that's what the ask was, and that's where the task was. And I'd say we executed it beautifully. It was more than, I think, 3 years of blood, sweat, and tears. Lots of explaining. Security is also very interested in what we were doing. So it's giving us quite a lot of confidence to say that innovation is really enhancing the bankability of really important projects that are happening.
I think Uzanela is very humble, actually, when I listen to her. I think when it comes to what she's talking about, trigger-based insurance, it's a world-leading concept and idea. She mentioned that it took about 3 years to get to this point. That's because there was incredible regulatory scrutiny. Parametric insurance is something that our larger regulatory environment is still debating, and guys look at it on a case-by-case basis. I wouldn't be surprised if from the price volatility solution, it is probably the first in the country, if not the continent. I don't quote me on that, but I wouldn't be surprised because it is so difficult. These are the types of solutions that we have to find as risk managers and practitioners to allow the release of capital for projects that are as important as what Nyanza is doing.
So Langa, I can attest that the price volatility parametric insurance cover, which was one of the innovative aspects of this project, was actually a first of its kind in the country. And it was truly a game changer for this project. So we can rubber stamp that. So maybe to you, Rob, having a policy in place that guarantees revenue, even if market prices drop, must alter the risk balance significantly. How did having this customized protection influence your financial modeling and lender negotiations?
So the first thing that it did was to bring certainty into the model. So when you model these kinds of things, you do what is called sensitivity analysis. So in other words, what happens if these scenarios happen and if things go wrong on various key cost drivers, for instance, of the project? What happens if things happen on the upside? And this solution, or this parametric insurance solution, enabled us to be able to model with more certainty in the project. Nyanza's funders are predominantly in the DFI space. So this funding has been brought to bear through the sponsors, DFIs, and of course the South African government through the DTIC, which has been together with us through the development of the project. Now, DFIs are usually known for funding with a lot of certainty. That's why they play in the infrastructure space. Now, while Nyanza has got a large infrastructure bill in its build program, it also has a commercial business angle in terms of producing product to sell to the market. And this solution that Makesure brought to us then enabled the DFIs to have comfort and their committees to be able to look at this and have certainty in the way that they can approach their credit risk profiles and their credit risk committees.
Excellent. Langa, beyond market prices, physical construction carries immense risk. How are the principal controlled contractors all risk, marine, and delay in startup covers designed to ensure the project stays protected from transport to site assembly?
Yeah, I think you've nailed it. Because there's such a big construction component, you need to be able to consider, one, what would happen if we lose the physical infrastructure that we use to build, not just losing the value of the asset itself, but what that means for the downtime of the construction project, losses of revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And delay and startup, we know, I think, every day you open a newspaper, you'll hear of some project that started, we've heard of large power stations that took years to build. And they not only sometimes start late, but they oftentimes also overrun. So these are the factors that you need to consider. And your marine goods in transit, again, conceptually, it's like having constructed your cell phone, you've bought it, you went to the iStore, you got so much, and then someone nicks it off the road from you. You want to be able to be sure that, okay, there is a solution in place that I can be able to replace that item that I've worked so hard for along the road. It's immensely important to securing the running of the business. Just before we even talk about investors, Nyanza knows that they are protected from their infrastructure and their cash flow perspective.
Fantastic. Maybe to wrap it up, Za, looking ahead at the construction phase and beyond, what does successful collaboration between industrial visionaries and risk brokers look like as South Africa builds out its next generation of mega infrastructure?
Thanks, Nono. And I love that you put the word visionaries in your question, because there is a deep sense of emotion and euphoria that comes with actually seeing Nyanza go to financial close. It's over and above the business case. It's over and above the economic argument. It's quite personal for a Black South Africa that is coming up and taking its resources back, well, some of its resources back. So over and above, once the emotions have settled, collaboration now needs to come to everyone coming to the port with the skill set that they have. As MacShaw, as collaborators, we would want to be able to identify risk areas very early on in the project financing space. So working on the Nyanza project, we realized that improvement of risk doesn't only come as a request for a list of insurance policies that every project should take on. We realized that there should be a value addition from the challenges of the risks that have previously been uninsurable, such as the price volatility parametric that we came up with. That is one way which I know the South African project finance infrastructure should be looking at locking that in earlier on, so that in the unfortunate event of catastrophic market shocks, those catastrophic market shocks coming in shouldn't be something that will lag and potentially compromise the entire project, something that we can be able to quantify and place in a legitimate insurance vehicle and let that be a benefit to the project as well. Yeah. And I know that for future generations, if we take that preset onlook towards risk and what we thought was previously uninsurable, and we bring our heads together, it could potentially turn around the entire project finance and mega project finance into the future. So thanks for that.
Allow me to swing the very same question to you, Langa.
Oh wow! I think she said it all. It's lovely to see how big and the securing of the funding for this project, how immensely valuable it is going to be, not just to the people of Richards Bay, not just to KwaZulu-Natal, but the country at large. And we hope that we can use the model that has been. We hope that we can reuse the model and the tools that we've learned and the skills that we've acquired to unlock further capital for other projects all around the country. South Africa's, we're very aware of the growth level that has been stagnant and low for the best part of 15 years. These are the types of things that will unlock South African growth. Very excited to see what we could do in future.
Thank you. And to yourself, Ro, the very same question.
Look, so from our side, as I indicated earlier on in my introduction, the titanium dioxide pigment plant that we're building now is just the first phase of many. So to Zanele's point, we look forward to collaborating with Make Sure to come up with more innovative solutions or continue on this path that we've started as we look into the future in our roadmap. So exciting times for us.
Excellent. What this project proves is that Africa doesn't just have world-class resources. We have world-class engineering, financial capability, and risk management to back them up. A massive congratulations to both Nyanza Light Metals and Make Sure Risk Solutions for unlocking this landmark deal and showing the world what is possible. To our audience, thank you for tuning in. If you would like to learn more about how Make Sure structures risk for major infrastructure and industrial builds, visit www.makesure.co.za. And if you would like to learn more about this project, you can visit Nyanza